Hello, and welcome to the first long-awaited Milton Valley Railroad session-making live stream. I'm so happy to finally be doing this, and welcome everybody. Hello. Right, so we're here, finally. I suppose I should probably introduce what the plan is. So the plan is for... Oh, by the way, the MVR might look slightly different than you remember it from the last route building video. That's because I changed the textures for all the important ones to be PBR textures, and I updated a whole bunch of stuff. But anyway, you'll see that as we go. So the plan is for this to be both, of course, entertaining for you, but also educational. If you're watching this and you're building Trainz routes yourself, and you want to maybe get into session creation, or maybe you just want to make sessions for a different route that's not your own, then you can still make sessions for those routes. And so I want to share my methods that I've come up with myself through trial and error of how I make sessions. Now, there are, of course, many different ways of doing a lot of different things in Trainz, some of which work better than others. So my way of doing this may be very different than how you would do it, and that's fine. I just want to show you how I do it, and because of that, I'm not going to be making every session on stream. That would just take ages, and it would also spoil everything for you. So instead, I'm going to make the first session, which chronologically, when you, in the final product, I might switch around the order of the sessions, because generally I number the sessions and put them in such an order as to give the player the most variety of both gameplay and rolling stock and environment when they play through the sessions in order. But the first session I'm making, so this is I've not made any sessions for this route yet. This is the first session. So this one I'll make on stream, and also I'll try to make one passenger, one freight, and also maybe one that has some switching stuff. We'll see how it goes, so that you get a good kind of variety of the sorts of things that I'm making. And then I'll also give my commentary on how I might do a few things differently depending on different circumstances. So, hello everybody, Kango Fango, Real Huntswasser, finally, stream number 280, wow! I've been waiting for this stream for months. So have I. Well, I haven't been waiting, but yeah. That was May. Wait, route building video? Not stream? It's a video as well. Well, I guess they were uploaded as videos. Hey, here's how TGV up to. Are your ordered sessions also chronological? So session 1 could be set in 1959, while 9 is set in 1967. Not necessarily. The plan is for all the sessions here to be set pretty much at the same time. Also, I want to get through a lot in this, so some chat messages I might not read out loud, but I will endeavor to definitely read all of them and cognate them, even if I don't read them out loud. Not all of them. So, the very first thing I do when I've just finished a route, which, as we make the session, there might be a few things that still need changing, and that's okay. In fact, I expect that, but the route is now what I would consider to be finished. First thing I do is I load into the default session, which this is, and I put in all the stuff that I can think of that will be shared between all the sessions. Like, for example, session rules that cancel the session when you pass through a signal at danger, for example. Because the way that I make new sessions is I go into the default session, and then I save as, and then the new session name, and then I edit that new session. because some things are stored only within the session, not within the root. Like, for example, some signals, the setup you do when you use the properties tool over here, some signals only save their properties in the session, not in the root, which is annoying, but that's why I do it this way. So let's get started with that. If you click up here and then go into edit session, you can see this is the default session for the PBR version of the root. And even this says that this no longer has any function and that this can be removed. It's obsolete, the session rule. I don't know if that is true, probably is, but I see no reason to delete it for now, so I'm just going to leave it in for the time being. So, first things first, I go into driver setup, and then I delete all the drivers that are here, if there are any. Remove all existing drivers, I turn off. Generate new drivers for empty trains, I turn off. And focus camera on first train, I leave on, because my I always add all my drivers manually to all the trains, so that I can make sure that the player train will have the first driver in the list, and that none of the drivers come from payware or packaged things. Pretty sure root objects should save their objects in the root, probably their data. So this is probably a bug. Oh yeah, there are. They should definitely, yeah, options. They should save their stuff in the root layer, but I know that some objects don't, which, yeah, it's a bug. But as we continue on, you'll find there are lots of things where I do things a certain roundabout way to avoid certain bugs or potential bugs. So, is its obsolescence obsolete? Who knows? So it could potentially be different in TRS 22+. Yep, true. But this root is going to be compatible with TRS 19, assuming all goes well. So, right, that's my setup for the drivers, because I always add my drivers manually. Then for driver commands, now I'll have to, most of these are either from the download station or they come with the game. Some of them are from payware root. Like, for example, there's a, hold on, the icons aren't loading in. There's a session that waits until a certain time, I think, that is a payware thing. Now, there's no real way of finding out which one is and isn't payware until you add it, and then you can, I think it'll show up as a dependency in the session. But yeah, so the driver commands, these are, or what's the thing of session rules? No, driver commands are things that AI trains can do, basically. They're rules that AI trains can do. So for example, bells, you can, hold on, you should be able to click the little, there we go, the little check mark. That means that this rule can now be used, can now be given an AI driver, which can turn on and off the bell, for example. So I'm going to quickly scroll through these and activate all the ones that I'm likely going to be using in most of the sessions. So couple, that's good. Daylights, yep. Decouple, yes, but there's also another one that I might need. Delete train, that's useful, for at least for the way that I do this. Because the way I make my sessions, my AI trains, I script them such that, well, usually, see, if this were like a commuter route, like the third rail stuff is planned to be, then I would probably actually create schedules for the passenger trains to run on, and they would run on those schedules. But for all other routes, I always make the AI train behavior dependent on the player's progress. So the player goes over triggers, and then that triggers AI trains, which means that when a train leaves a player's perception, then I usually delete it with this rule, because then it doesn't require any more performance. Chat. Right, that's the stream. Yep. You could look up every rule in Content Manager beforehand, I guess, but nobody does that. Yeah. True. Shadows, before adding a session rule, you could look at its name in the DLS to check if it's payware. Yeah. Or do what I did for the Blue Water Valley, install another instance of Trainz that you just don't install payware in. Yes, and for my next routes, I will do that, but I'm going to do that when I switch over to TRS 22, because I don't want to do all of that for TRS 19 and then do it again for 22. And since this is going to be my last route for TRS 19 anyway, yeah, yeah. But that's a good point. Okay, let's see. Drive schedule. This I used a long time ago. I don't know exactly how it works. We don't need it for this. I'm going to enable... Okay, so the difference between drive to track mark or drive to whatever and navigate to is that navigate will dynamically try to go around obstacles like trains blocking sections. Drive will only try to go the shortest path, and if it's blocked, I don't think that it'll automatically update to go around. But normally navigate, well, I'll enable the drive anyway. I'm not sure if there's a performance difference. There might be. Repeat. This enable repeat, this repeat rule used to be default enabled always, so you could just, so it just always loops through orders, and that could be useful. But I don't think I'm going to use it that often, so I'm not going to add it now. Let's see. Whole train. Headlights on off. Yep. Horns. There's to sound the horn. Instant load. That's very useful. Instant unload as well. Let's see. Move to train might be useful. Navigate to is on by default. I think that should be okay. We don't need pantograph stuff. There's a specific one I'm looking for. Ah, here we go. Uncouples from. This rule allows you to tell a locomotive to uncouple a certain coupler by number. So uncouple coupler number 5, so then it'll go 5 cars in and then uncouple there, which is really useful for uncoupling certain sections of a train. And then wait for trigger. This one I use a lot. And then I think this wait until, this one might be the payware one. I don't know. Although maybe not. I don't think, I might not have the payware one installed here. I don't know. But this is good. This is pretty much what I usually have installed. Let me just look over there for chat. Drive schedule makes the train drive a preset schedule. It was intended as a hybrid between player and AI instructions. Like the schedule could be used as instructions for the player or use the AI command to drive it. Yes. Mariah's Pass approach demo on TRS 6 used it. Interesting. So you need daylight and headlights on off? I don't know. I usually have both of them on because I'm not entirely sure what the difference is, but daytime headlights and ditch lights for daylight enabled vehicles. Yeah, I usually just keep them both on. But anyway, so those are... Oh, hello, Elisa VGR, welcome. So that's what I set up for driver commands. And now is something that I'll do a lot, which is I'll click the check mark, go out of this window, and save. Because so many times has it happened to me that I put so much coding, well, session scripting in here, and then Trainz crashed, and all of it was gone, because it doesn't save until you click the check mark, not the X. The X cancels without a confirmation message, it just cancels. Click the check mark and then save. Now clean up derailed trains, that's fine. Quick drive. Well, yeah, I'll leave the default to 10 a.m. Enable gameplay session mode. This means that you won't have the ability to add or remove trains, for example, which in the final product I always check, but during testing I leave off. Enable in-game help by default. These are the junction levers. So these are the red and green arrows above junctions. This I turn off. Default in realistic mode. I'm not going to turn on prevent player from changing this unless certain locomotives don't work well in DCC mode. So I set it to cab mode or realistic mode. The derailment realism I always set to realistic. And this one I do prevent the player from changing. And the default units, well, default is imperial, but I'm going to just set it to imperial. Okay, do that. This one, I'm just going to leave. Interlocking stuff. I've not really played with the interlocking stuff. I don't really understand fully how it works yet. Marky and Eagle have tried to explain it to me, but I haven't tried to use it yet. I might try using it for the third rail stuff, especially since there'll be a lot of traffic which will be time dependent rather than player progress dependent, but for this I don't think I'll need it. So that's going through the session rules that are here. Now, if you click add, you can add so many different session rules. Many different session rules. Although, actually no, I think the payware time thing was a session rule, not a driver command. This one, time check. I think this one is payware, I believe. I think so. Anyway, so let's just go through some of the basic things that are put in for pretty much every session. The first one is I put in the signal passed at danger rule. So the way that this works, the rules, is like it's a computer program basically. So it goes through from top to bottom, and then if you indent them with the arrow keys, well, actually, no, the arrows at the bottom there. If you click there, then you can see it indents it, which means this has to be true for this to run. But it doesn't always work exactly how you expect it. Well, we'll get to that. So this, if you double click it, or actually if you click edit, this triggers if a train passes a signal at danger. They can add a rule. And then, for example, message pop up, and then indent that, which means this message will only appear once a train has passed a signal at danger. So then if you click edit on this one, you can check whether or not the game should pause. In this case, I do want it to pause. And here you can make it display a custom HTML asset, but I've not really played around with that. So, there. Right, so let's put in a custom message. So, signal passed at danger, and then new line, square brackets, session failed. Hello, Code Monkey, welcome. Actually, let me read. Yeah, why didn't I put the check mark in the corner? Oh well. So if the MVR is your last tiers 19 route, the third rail 4651 will be made in tiers 22? Yes. Would be great if you could use your computer's arrow keys in the edit session rule view. Yeah, I mean, you can use them to go to select a session, but yeah. And in the text box, I guess you put the words signal idiot in big bold letters. Ha ha ha. Yeah. No options for text formatting, unfortunately. But you can make custom HTML assets and link them in here so that the HTML asset will be displayed in the message pop-up instead of just text. But you can set an icon. So here, for example, if you look for, oh, what was it? Was it icon or was it, hold on. Icon, oh yeah. Where was it? Icon red, for example. It'll display that icon in the corner. Sie sind ein unfähiger Saufbold. Yes. Good callback. Good callback. Which translates to you are actually unfähig, not impotent. What's the English word for that? Incapable, yes. You are an incapable drunkard. Put that in. No, not yet. Maybe some, not yet, but good reference. I may do that if I ever do a German route. Incompetent. Incompetent, that's the word I was looking for, yes. So here we go. The text. You can also autoplay a sound if you want to, which, by the way, you can also make sounds be part of HTML assets, I think. I haven't really played around with it. And the reason why I wanted to pause while this message is active is that if you put another session rule underneath the message pop-up and you indent it, then it'll wait until the message pop-up has been confirmed, so it's been clicked away, and then the child rule will run, which in this case would be to end the session. And so I don't want the player to just be able to continue to drive while you've passed a red signal, which is why I've enabled the pausing in this message. Now, I could just use the end session rule. However, my sessions will be ranked sessions, which means that you'll have score points, basically. So instead, I'll use the ranked session complete. And that will be, actually, will I? I don't know if you can. Actually, no. In this instance, I think that you can still drive while this, because that puts up a message pop-up. So I am actually just going to use the end session rule. I'm going to indent it, and you can make it fade out, which might be broken, I don't know. I'm just going to set it to 3 seconds, and then I'm going to click the check mark and save. Actually, if you localize the sessions, you can put it in. I don't know how I would go about localizing the sessions. That'd be interesting. Translate 3 paints too? No! Milton Eisenbahn. No! Milton Tal? Maybe that. Okay, so that's, and you can click the little arrows here to collapse the indentations, which is useful. Okay, so next. Next is, actually, let's see. I'm just going to say ranked session begin. And then you can put in how many stars it gives you for how many points. Now, this might be because I'm used to it from Trainz Simulator, like Dovetail Games Trainz Simulator, but I usually make it so that 5 stars is 1,000 points, and then I divide it between the stars. So that would be 200, yeah, I think. So for 1 star, if you get 200 points, then 2 stars is 400, 3 stars is 600, 4 stars is 800, and then 5 stars is 1000 points. And then you've got different session timer modes. Timer modes. You've got timer, countdown, and none. If I click help, is that gonna... Actually, here we go. Let's see. While challenges active, yeah, I know that. Score is based on a standard session variable named ranking points, which can be altered using the variable modifier. Yes, yes, yes. I don't... You can look up online what these 3 different modes do. I'm going to set it to none for now, because I don't necessarily remember what they do, and so I might want to check it for each session separately, what I do. Okay, so that begins the session at the beginning, of course. Right. You localize assets by going in the main config file and adding another string table for the language you want. Interesting. How would that work with session rules, though, like message pop-ups? Okay, next thing is speeding. So speed check rule. Edit that. Watch for trains traveling above the posted speed limit. And I usually allow for 3 mph variance tolerance. So that if you drive in DCC mode, where you don't have that much control over the speed of the exact speed of the train, it won't penalize you for going at the speed limit if you're slightly above it. The message is also a string in the table, I believe. A string table. Ah, that is interesting. Okay, next I need to add a message under that. So message pop-up, indent this, edit it. This one I won't pause because it's more stressful that way. And then I'm going to type, hey, you're currently losing points due to speeding. Let me just double check I've spelled it correctly. Yep, okay. And then there's an icon warning, which I usually use, which is just an exclamation mark in that, like that. And then there we go. And yeah, I don't pause for that rule because then it's more stressful that way. It's like, oh, message, what's the warning? Hey, you're currently losing points due to speeding? No! Yeah. Indent this, out and that. Yep, stressful, correct. I did that too on Haddencott's 8th session. Just had the inspector go, I'm just going to deduct points until you slow down. Yeah, I remember. Okay, so pretty much every session also has uses navigation points. Now for the third rail network, I was thinking of maybe having different difficulties of sessions, where on the hardest difficulty you don't get navigation markers to help you figure out where you need to do your where you need to stop and that and so on. But for the MVR, I'm just going to use navigation markers, which means that all sessions are going to need the navigation display rule, session rule. This is where if you edit it, you can see you can add a list of navigation markers and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to add that just below the ranked session begins. But what I usually do is put a message pop-up in front, because one thing that I've noticed with Trainz is that if you save a session, and then, if you save a gameplay session, so if you go in Driver and you play through the session and you save it partway through and then you load that save game, not every session rule saves and loads its state, which means the session can break doing that. Some session rules work perfectly fine. In fact, most do, but some don't. And so what I did for the Coleman Mountains Railroad, I'm going to do the same thing here. Hopefully, N3V will still allow that through their testing process. They did last time. They didn't say anything, so I'm going to add it here, which is, it is recommended to play this session in one go, as saving and loading may break. As you meant to play the session in one go, as saving and loading may break the session. May break the session. Okay, just a warning. Yeah, I think I did put the session in one session in the Coleman Mountains Railroad, but in this one I think this is probably good. Right, reading. Bring a little bit of TSC into it. Blink, speeding, blink, unblink. Yeah. The blinking used to be in Trainz 2 actually. Post speed and current speed were given in the if the latter exceeds the former, but the latter started flashing yellow-red if it exceeded it. Not this session in one session. It's remained to play this session in one session, as to not break the session. Yeah, I think some people might not think that is comedy. Some people might think that it's someone whose native language isn't English doing that, writing it. Yeah, reloading a game is bugged, especially annoying on massive routes like the EMCL, East Coast Main Line, because nobody plays a 5-hour session one go. Yeah, which is why if one of my sessions is longer than an hour, I break it into multiple different sessions. But yeah, so it is recommended to play this session in one go, as saving and loading may break the session. Okay. Right, so this I will pause, and that's the first message that you will... Actually, should that be the first message, or should that be after? Actually, I don't know if I want the very first message you get to be a warning when you go in. I think I'm probably going to have that be the last message before you actually get into the gameplay. Eastmost coastline. Yeah. Okay, so there is also another different message pop-up rule that has a larger box. Oh, what was that called? 1 second, let me just quickly find it. It would be so helpful if you could make this window a bit bigger as well. But unfortunately you cannot. SAP message pop-up, that was the one. Right, and also this, you need to be careful with how you do this, because now you can see this is indented, but it's above the rule below. If I don't want this to be indented, I could just move it to the left, but then that automatically puts the thing indented underneath it, underneath this text box. So instead what you can do, hold on, is you can click and drag this up as well. On the rule list, is that text box for searching or just to display the selected name? At the top is for searching. So you can put in, for example, message pop-up and you can search for it. But yeah, but it goes through alphabetically, so whatever begins with that, it'll yeah. Right, so this will be the start message, so I'm actually going to rename the session rule. I'm going to name it player orders. And you can see it in brackets there. And then I am actually going to need another normal message pop-up underneath. I think that should work. And this should just be basic information of how to play the session. So, for example, that you shouldn't speed, that you shouldn't go through red lights, and that you should always stop on nav markers with the leading locomotive or car. Because the way that the nav points work is that if you stop on one, for example, then if any part of the train is on that marker, it'll count as the marker having been completed, and then it'll continue. But if you have a marker just in front of a junction, for example, and then you want the junction to switch after the train is stopped, then, of course, the junction can't switch if the train rolled over the junction and stopped on the marker that way. Which is why I put it at the beginning of every session that you need to stop on every marker with the leading locomotive or car. So, information of export, yeah. I'm just gonna say important information, or just important info. Okay, important info. So the first one is, do not pass signals at danger. Do not exceed the speed limit by more than 3 miles per hour. And then I'm going to have a quick look at one of the CMR sessions to see all the stuff I put in there, just to make sure that I didn't forget anything, but I'm just going to put in about the markers now. Always stop on markers with the leading loco/car. Okay, and that one should also pause because I don't want the time to tick by if this is a timed session with that. Okay. So that's good. And with these messages, I do believe you can have them right like underneath like this, and it'll only display the next one once the previous one has been confirmed. Here I'm just going to put in player orders, just so that it that it has something in the field, so that it doesn't return error. Does it really need to be explained that you should not go over the speed limit? One would think that the name speed limit already implies that. True, but I've got it in there because I don't want you to go over the speed limit by 3 miles per hour. So that if you play the session in DCC mode, where you don't have as much control over exactly what speed you're going at, you might have to exceed the speed limit a little bit, just because of that imprecision. And I want to communicate to the player that you can very slightly exceed the speed limit. Also, if you're, for example, late, then you can slightly push that a little bit more to make up for lost speed. Plus, the location and era we're talking about, people, drivers, engineers, breaking the speed limit to make up for lost time was, as far as I know, fairly common. So beginner players may not think about it. True. Okay, now I'll consciously make sure I click the check mark, not the X. It hurts. Please stop. My inner train driver is screaming. No, I need to. I don't want to stop my stream already. Okay, let's quickly go. Oh, this looks a bit broken. Let's quickly go into the CMR. You don't want to see people driving at 95 in a 60 zone. Yes, I do not. Okay, so I'll just quickly go into this one. Action cold run, edit session. Or coming to a station on full service brake, then reversing. Give Rehan's was in a train driver cookie 64. I remember way back when with Minecraft, when the give command used to have you weren't able to put in item names like you are now, like Minecraft : Elytra, for example, but you actually had to give in the item's number instead. So I think with TNT it was 46, so it was give 4664 or something like that, I believe. That was a long time ago. Okay, this might take a moment or so to load. There we go. Now let's go into edit session. Let's see, what did I put in here? Is that the one? Important info. Okay, that's actually better to have it like that with all capitals. Always stop on markers with your leading locomotive coach. Always with a speed limit. Keep an eye on upcoming speed changes. You may only pass a signal displaying a danger aspect to couple to consist. I might add that in depending on what the session is. While shunting, make sure all junctions set in your path are set correctly. Okay, so about the junctions, I need to add the upcoming speed limits and bold. So those three things. Okay, let's go into the MVR PBR, the MVR PBR. Yeah. Wow, the CMR loaded quick. Yeah, that really surprised me. Make sure, always make sure ahead junctions are set in your favor. CMR, best purchase I ever made. The route's amazing. Aw, thank you. Yeah, so all of this prep that I'm doing now, I always put that in the default session, so again, so that I don't have to do that again with every session I make. Now you can actually copy and paste session rules between sessions, I believe, if you select them in Command C and Control C. Actually, is it Command? I don't know. And V. Okay, so here we go. I'll make this capital. Important info. And then this one, always keep an eye on upcoming speed changes. And then at the bottom, I'm going to put in while shunting, you may need to change switches manually. Okay, that seems pretty good. And then here, I guess the info icon could work. It sometimes takes a moment for all of the graphics to properly load in, along with the assets in the background. Because if I click the check mark here, you can see that several of the assets haven't loaded in yet. Just need to wait a moment for that all to work. There we go. And now if I click in here, I still can't see it. Okay, well that should be fine. There we go. Important info. Do not pass signals at danger. Do not exceed the speed limit by more than 3 miles per hour. Always keep an eye on upcoming speed changes. By the way, that's another little tip. In this session rule box, this text box, if you open it up, so hold on, if you click edit, then you won't be able to scroll through that, even if you've got more. Oops. Even if you've got more lines, but if you edit the text, like if you add a spacebar and then you remove it, then suddenly you're able to scroll through it again. Little bug, but it can save you some time. Important? No, important, but thanks. Yeah, but thank you for pointing out any. If I make any spelling mistakes, please do point them out. Thank you. Always keep an eye on upcoming speed changes. Probably speed limit changes. Always stop on markers with the leading loco/car. While shunting, you may need to change switches manually. Actually, that should be throw switches. You need to throw switches manually. That's going to pause the custom text. Okay, that's all good. Now I'll save. Go back into edit session. So what's next? We've got speeding. We've got the basic text messages that are supposed to appear after, well, at the beginning of every session. We've got signal. Maybe it would be good if you'd switch to the full screen capture OBS scene and zoom in so we can see the message properly too. But then I can't read chat. And besides, this is all going to go through beta testing anyway, so yeah. Okay, so let's actually quickly go through, very quickly scroll through the session rules to see if there's anything that kind of jumps out at me and gives me a jump scare. Let's see. So AWS, nope. Check track side, no. Well, that is very useful, but not. But that isn't something that every session has a specific thing. Clean up derailed trains. Oh, it's already in there. Clock rules, fine. That's all fine. Control type. I don't think I need that specifically. Coupler breakage. Is that... Actually, no, that reminds me. The train... Or is it just called physics? Vehicle physics. That's one I usually add. And I usually add that right up there because that looks very similar. So, applying to all trains, this has coupler breakage parameters. And you can even show the HUD, which I usually do. And then you've got parameters for wheel slip as well, where if you're sanding, you can get more traction, which usually traction is reduced to 25% while wheel slipping. Traction boost is 10% while sanding. I usually play with that a little bit. Cab sway. I'll leave that as default for now. And I might change that depending on what session we're doing. In certain sessions, I might want the sanding to be more effective than in others. So, but I'm just going to add that for now, and we'll, because I usually have it in there. Let's see. Some of the weather rules I use sometimes, but not always. All the interlocking stuff that I don't really understand. Let's see. Yeah, the navigation and stuff. Objectives I sometimes use. Like, I really only use... Like, with the CMR, I didn't use them. With the Haddon-Code Tramway, I did. And I might... We'll see what it feels like. And if they're necessary, then I'll add them. They're basically a bit of text at the top that tells you what to do. Ranked session complete will of course need, but that will be dependent on whatever nav point set is completed. So I'll add that on a case-by-case basis. Here's the schedule stuff, which I think that's the one that links with the other one. This session rule I have also used quite a bit in the past, but I don't think I've used it properly yet. Metadata, that's one we need. So I'll add that in. Although, actually no, I won't, because then because what the metadata does is it tells in the menu, when you click on the session, it tells you what kind of session it is and how difficult it is and how long it takes to play. But this is one that I sometimes forget about, and so it's good to not have that in there in the beginning, because then every time you click on the session, there's a chance for you to see that you haven't put in the stuff yet. Helper icon size. This changes the red and green arrow size above the junctions. I usually set that to 50, so half the size. And then, okay, now for most sessions, I will have all the junctions locked, and then specifically lock or unlock certain junctions or set them via session rules as things go, or specifically remove certain junctions if I want the player to set them manually. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in the set junctions rule, click edit, and then I'm just going to add, you can click add all, and that might take a moment. Has that worked? Hold on. Oh yeah, there we go. Just didn't update. Yeah, and these are all the junctions. And if you just click add all, then you can see it says the junction on the left. That's the first column. The second column, don't change. That is which way the junction is set, and don't change just means it's the default what you set in the surveyor. Column after that, locked or unlocked, whether the player can change it. And then allow AI control means that the AI can switch the junction. Okay, then I'm gonna... Yeah, and it does say that this is you're supposed to use interlocking towers instead of this, but I just find that this, for one thing, I don't really understand interlocking towers currently, yet. And secondly, this being able to say specifically which junctions needs to be switched which way, I just like having that very precise control. So I'm going to save that. And where was that? Set of functions, okay. Next is, okay, these are, yeah, set ranking points to score and set score to ranking points, because there are session rules that will deduct or add points depending on your arrival at or departure from stations, but they don't use the ranking points variable. Instead, they use score, I believe, or the other way around. But anyway, you need this to make sure that the two are synced. It's don't worry about it. We'll get to it. Let's see, that's all good. The danger, the speed, we already did those. Startup options. Isn't this added by default? I'll have to check. It's all good. Wait for derailment. I always like the name of this session rule. Okay, so that's all good. Actually, what did that? The startup options. I thought that was part of the thing by default. Did they remove that at some point? Oh, these are the old. Oh right, yeah. This is what they used to use instead of the before they had the quick drive rule. You used to have the startup options session rule. Huh. Anyway, so this is pretty much all the stuff that I put in. At the beginning in the default session, and then I clone the default session with the save as, and then I go from there. So let's save, rechat, and then, well, then we'll actually get going with the first session, I believe. Where was I? Isn't the coupler breakage already a thing from realistic driving physics? Realistic driving physics? I don't think so. I think that only do you mean in the quick drive rule? I think that's only how easily it derails. Oh, you can change the effectivity of sanding. 23,000 metric tons max weight on an AAR coupler. Okay. Reminder, session metadata. Reminder set for session metadata. Set subtitle text? Yeah, I think that, they can set a text to appear at the bottom of the screen, I think. How new? I think the settings from the startup options were moved to the quick drive rule. Yep. I think the startup options used to be a default one. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now so if you want to change the name of a session, which is also what it will appear as in Content Manager and in the main menu, you go to Edit Session and you can change the name up here. Now, in the final product, all my sessions are numbered. So it'll be 1 dot space and then the name of the session, so that it's clear that you're supposed to play them in that order, which I do so that you've got the best variety of gameplay. But since I usually end up shuffling some sessions around, when I make the new session, so actually let's do this. So save as, no, just save new session. Okay, just for the sake, because I'm now also thinking about when I make backups of my content from the content manager. Oh, actually, I suppose, hold on, let me just double check something. If I go to, if I search for Milton Valley Railroad, so the PBR one, and then right click, list dependents. Okay, then it'll automatically show all the sessions, so that's good. Okay, in that case, I'm gonna put in a dot, because it can get confusing if I number them through like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, and then I want to make number 4 number 7, then I've got 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then I need to figure out, okay, which one of those did I want to put somewhere else? And so while working, I instead use letters, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever. And then when I specifically set which order I want them to go in, I give them the numbers that they want. Okay, so A, and now, of course, the name. And tell you what, I'm just going to do MVR session for now. I know it should be an MVR session, but okay. And then, because I want to go over, I don't know exactly what the session will be yet, so I don't know what name to give it. But I'll save that. And then I'm not sure if that's already saved it or not. So if we go into today, okay, that has saved it, but it's open for editing, of course. Usually actually, yeah, so that saved it, but I'm not sure if we're now already editing that session. I don't think so. So what I usually do is I go out, because I think we're still editing the original session, the default. And then here's the new session, a MVR session. And then if you click edit session, then it'll go into that session. I may be wrong, but I think that there was something at one point where it wouldn't switch over to the other session. You could double check that, but it's just a habit that I've gotten into, just to make 100% sure that I'm editing the correct session, not the default, which has happened to me in the past as well, and then I didn't have a default session anymore, and that was annoying. Cashier number G, please. Hahaha. Okay, almost loaded. Let's just wait for it to actually all load in. Today's tutorial is brought to you by the letter 5. But if that did happen and the default session became the actual session, couldn't you have renamed the actual one back to default and the default to the actual one? Yeah, I suppose I could have done that. Yeah. Although then sometimes the KUI, I would have had to change the KUIDs as well if I wanted to do that. Or maybe not. But yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it sometimes takes a little while for it to actually load in all the assets and everything. Although I've had some great ideas for the third rail network as well, which I won't share yet because I want to go over those when we get started with the planning for that, but I've had some fun ideas. Yeah, I need to wait until this has finished loading in the corner, because otherwise I won't be able to. Actually, tell you what, I can already begin explaining what I think might be a fun session. So, for this session, I want it to be a passenger session, and we've only got some limited passenger options here. So we've got this branch going up there, then we've got main line going over here, and then we've got main line going up to there, or then up to here. It branches off a lot, which means we don't really have that many intermediate stops. So in terms of intermediate stops, we've only really got the museum, and then Telehai, and Nothasia. So those 3 stops. All the other ones are end stops. Well, actually, except for Clayton Heights. Clayton Heights is also an intermediate stop. So I think it would be fun to make a passenger session first, and to go from originally. So this is what currently I'm thinking might be a good first session for the route. So you go through it as I've numbered, or as I will have numbered them, then this will be the first session. Now, originally I thought it would be fun to start off at New Penzance at the terminus, and then go up the main line into the more mountainous areas, maybe up to Nothasia. But the New Penzance terminus and the yard are the most demanding areas on the route performance-wise. And I don't really want to start a player off in those. Now, the route isn't that performance heavy. I mean, I can run it on my computer without it really lagging that much, especially if I'm not streaming. But I still want to have the first impression be a smooth gameplay experience. So I was thinking it might be good, to have the player take a train from New Washington, so up here, along there, stop at Clayton Heights, then go into Telehai, and then go past the yard, so that you go into the city, where now you will see, you'll have a little bit of forest there, you've got a bit of country, you've even got the tunnel, you've got the beautiful views here, and then you'll get introduced to the main line, and if it is a little bit laggy, then you will notice, maybe I need to turn down some settings. So that you already have that impression, but the previous impression was smooth. So then stop at Telehai, whatever. And then stop at Museum Street, and then go into New Penzance. And then I want to have a little bit of slightly more complex session rules, because that's a terminus. Tell a high, okay. So like tell a lie, only without the L. Tell a high. And yeah, ish. So this is a terminus, which means whatever locomotive we're going to go in with is going to be at the head end. Now, I want the player to then take, depending on how long the session is, I think it would be fun for the player to then take the locomotive into the yard for servicing. Which means we'll need to get rid of the coaches. So I could have the train reverse, but if we go over here, I specifically have this track right there, which is for a switcher, which is supposed to then take the coaches out onto this siding there. So let's have so the plan is currently to take the train in, and then maybe I'll have a little bit more complicated scripting for an AI train to then take the coaches, pull them back into the siding, and then that will allow the locomotives to run back into the yard, into the diesel servicing area, which should be, over here. So maybe pull up on one of those 2 tracks. And then that will also be a good test for me in terms of how much stuff I can put in this yard without it really lagging. Now, it might be a little bit lagging out, but that's mostly because I'm streaming and running OBS. If I stopped, and I'm running this on an old Mac. So, yeah. So I think that that's a good plan. If you've got feedback, please do let me know. And yeah. Have mechanics waiting. And it wasn't restarted before. Yeah, I know. So I think that seems like a good idea. So I always start by placing the player train first, so that it automatically gets listed as the first consist in the driver's menu. And let's put it up here at New Washington. Let's search for MVR official, which is what my stuff is called. And by the way, these are all the assets that I've repainted. Now, fair point with this. I've got permission to upload all of these assets except for the F7s. Because the F7s, these are Train Boy 1's beautiful models. Actually, I'll lock the root layer. That's another good point. Always keep the root layers locked when editing a session. Because when I first contacted him about repainting these, he said that generally he is open to reskins and then gave me pointers on how to reskin the model. But that I don't feel comfortable counting that as a definite, yes, you have permission to upload this reskin to the DLS. So I've tried to get in contact with him again, now for quite a while. I've tried messaging him on Trainz forums, and he's been online since, but no response. I've tried getting in contact via his website, no response. So I'm gonna try again to get in contact with him once I've made a few of these sessions, and hopefully I'll get permission to upload these reskins. The way that he wrote before, like where he said generally he's open to reskins and giving me the pointers on how to reskin this model, makes me think that it's probably fine, but especially when you're talking about a commercial product, not that the locomotives will be commercial, they'll be free on the DLS, but the route is a commercial product, probably fine isn't really good enough for me. So, yeah. I might need to, if I can't get expressed specific permission, I might have to just reskin the old Oren model instead, or find a different F7 model. But then I'll use bulk asset replace to replace them. So I'll use these for now, but we'll see. I was going to ask if AI could collect something the player dropped off, and apparently it can, which is mildly impressive. Yeah, you can tell the AI to couple up to a specific car or a specific piece of rolling stock, which, yeah. It can get a little fiddly when you have multiple locomotives connected to the same train, but we'll get into that. Yeah, Trainz Forge. Is a reskin just a texture and accompanying metadata, which requires the original asset, or as opposed to complete repackage? A reskin is basically a duplicate of the original asset, so it still contains the model, the scripting, all that stuff, but it's just some of the assets, namely the texture assets, have been changed. But it would be a re-upload of his original model and config file and all that sort of stuff, which I modified slightly, but yeah. Would require the original asset, would be new standalone asset. Well, that being said, certain parts of it, like the bogies, for example, are separate assets. I haven't touched these and wouldn't need to re-upload them. Well, he would have seen your messages by now, and if he didn't want it, I assume he would have replied you and told you so, I assume? Yeah, like I thought that as well. Like he saw the message. I assume he clearly saw the messages since he was online since I messaged him, and he didn't tell me not to do it. But then again, he also didn't say, "Oh yeah, that's fine," or "Sure," which would have been really easy to do. Like literally, click, one word, click. So I don't know. Anyway, let's actually do the session. So before we get into here, we're thinking about. I'm thinking about the train length now. So if we go into New Penzance, so the way that drivers work is that each locomotive can have a driver in the locomotive, which means that the locomotive can be controlled either by the player or by AI. Now, if I, for example, have a train here, and I've got cars attached, and I've got a driver in these locomotives, that's my player train, that's fine. Now, if an AI train coupled its locomotive to the back, then that driver in that locomotive would lose control over the train, because then it's only the frontmost locomotive, the one that's over where the closest to the green arrow, is the one that has control over the train. Which means if I give the AI locomotive in the back orders, like for example, couple up, then decouple, then reverse back, it'll couple up and lose control of the train, and the other rules won't get executed. Which means that if I want an AI train to come pick up the coaches and take them away, then I'll have to make the player train come in and make the player decouple the coaches first, and then have the AI pick them up. However, that still won't work, because when an AI couples up to something, it does so with quite a bit of force. And so that'll shove the cars and will recouple them to the player locomotives. Which means what I'll actually have the player do is come into the station, decouple the coaches, then pull forward a little bit, so there's a gap, and then I can have the AI come in, collect the coaches, and go and drive away. Which means that, the platforms over here are all pretty long. They're longer than the platforms up at New Washington, so lengthwise that shouldn't be an issue. But yeah, so let's go over here. Dignified. Yeah, well, these are the sort of things that you find out when you try to make sessions for trains. Okay. Also, the first locomotive you place, if you rotate that locomotive, you can see how the arrows switch. That's the direction the train's facing. If I put two of them down, then those arrows don't change facing when I do this. Instead, you've got to go over the train mode as opposed to the vehicle mode, and then use this tool, change heading or change direction, to change the arrow heading. But I'm still going to place this one first, so that if I click on this with a question mark, this is number 1 by default in the name. And then I'll add the other one. I think 2 units is fine. And then since this is supposed to be a commuter train and not... By the way, I did also manage to get permission to reskin some steam locomotives, and I'm really excited to use these, for example. But yes, anyway. So there's a commuter train, which means that I won't be using any of the dome cars. However, having a railway post office car is probably going to be good. And then I think I'm just going to fill the rest up with normal 48-seater coaches. Right. So how many cars? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with the RPO. I think that's okay. That's the length. That's the length of platforms that I chose. I mean, do I even need 2 units for this? I mean, this is not a very long train at all, so maybe having a single A unit might be fine. Although then I won't be able to reverse it back out into the yard. Because I'll have to reverse, thinking about it, I'll have to reverse it out of the... Although it does have mirrors. If you look here, it does have mirrors so that the driver can look backwards to see signal aspects. I think that could be fun. Yeah, I think having a single loco would be enough. Plus, if there's the first session, then the continuation of these lines going across might be quite fun. Okay, well, that's actually more in line with real practices, though they never drew forward by an enormous distance. Yeah, F7B? That's unnecessary. 1 loco would probably be fine for a few cars. Well, you can still reverse with only 1 loco. Oh yeah, yes. Yeah, 1 F7A plenty. Imagine just having an F7B instead. XD. Okay, so let's save. Right. Now, edit session. Because I disabled it automatically adding drivers, I've got to add this manually. And now, this is another somewhat annoying bit, which is... in this list of drivers, I don't know which of these are built in, or on the DLS, or packaged, or if this is, or which of this is payware. I don't know. Now, you can go in and search here for example, Alan. And then you can see here, this one is packaged. Alan is packaged. But if I go into Adair, I think that's how you pronounce it, you can see this one's built in. So Amy is also fine. So for the player, I pretty much always use Adair. Adair. There we go. And then I need to manually assign the vehicle, which this is the one with a 1 at the end. Don't worry about this one, that's just decoration at the roundhouse. Right, here we go. Now, auto detect is usually fine, but I'm just going to set this to be the first human player. Although, actually, yeah, I'm going to set this to be the first human player just in case. And then if you wanted this to be AI, you can give it commands here, but I don't, so that's fine. Right. Did any railroad ever run F7s with cab cars? The MVR did. I don't know. I don't know. Although one thing that could be interesting is just have an A unit at both ends of the train, just facing the other way. And that could work. That could work, and I think I might do that for some sessions. But not for this one, because I actually want the player to reverse out into the yard, and it wouldn't work otherwise. ATSF did, it didn't? Adair is definitely built in, just use him for all. Yeah, I usually use Adair for the player, and then for AI, I use Amy. The clone army of Adairs! No! By the way, fantastic work on all the repaints. They look wonderful. Thank you. Although I know that some of the repaints are also credit it to Kango, because he did help with some of the repaints as well. Not these ones. These ones are by me, but some of the assets were done by Kango. Right. Oh, cab cars, not observation cars. Sorry, thought of the wrong thing. That's fine. That's fine. So, starting off here, let's just set the player's path first of all, and by that I mean just literally flying along the train tracks. And this is annoying that this is a bug in Service Pack 5 TRS-19 on Mac, that the rotation of the camera, sometimes the switches don't render in like the helpers depending on the angle. There's something about the camera rotation that's bugged in this version, but also because of the sun, because like, yeah, you can see the sun doing that if I rotate the camera, which isn't great. Yeah. Time to upgrade to TRS-22. Yeah, true. But I want this route to be compatible with TRS-19 so that users who haven't upgraded to 22 will still be able to play it. So yeah, but yeah, after this route, definitely I'll be upgrading to TRS-22. I do have a copy from the Mac App Store, which you know, but yeah. Again, this lag is just because I'm streaming. Actually, I might set the texture resolution down a little bit if it does get really quite laggy, but we'll see. Actually, this should already be on the correct track. Yep, it's on the outer track, which means it'll go past here, and then... Actually, I think I can skip forward to when we head into New Penzance. Okay, so we're coming in here. Now, what platform do I want it to go in? I think that using this platform would be good, because it's long enough so that there won't be any issues with decoupling the cars, then running forward to allow the switcher to pick them up. And also, it'll give a nice clear shot of the passenger train coming in without the roof of an adjacent platform being in the way. So I don't quite know what track that is. So this is really annoying that I can't see which way the junctions are switched. Okay, that's correct. And then we do need to switch over onto this track from the outside track. So like that. And that should probably be all the junctions set correctly. Now, the next thing I do is I put in the nav markers, or at least I put in the main ones. So let's start with that. Now you can put nav markers either on track markers or triggers, or you can put them on vehicles. Let me read. Honestly, the difference isn't gonna be that much, to be honest, unless you go for TRS-22 Platinum or Plus. You will have Unified Driver Surveyor if you aren't coming from TRS-19 Platinum, I think. And you will have basic multiplayer surveyor functionality, and the rest is just bug fixes under the hood stuff, I believe. In terms of repaints, but that's okay. I mean, honestly, bug fixes and compatibility, yeah, that's fine. In terms of repaints, so far I've only done the Fairmont MT19 speeder card, adjusting extended dome car coaches, dome coaches, adjusting to the regular dome one, the bay window caboose interior, and prep work for the SW10 Ingalls shipbuilding 4S. Okay, so the first marker, actually let's go through it, why not? So the first marker I want to be on the locomotive telling you to stop. So you're not, so to wait for passengers to board, basically. So if we go into navigation display, sorry, unique set ID, right. So you can have different sets of navigation markers, and this is the ID, so there's just set 1. Train, this means that only certain trains can automatically trigger markers to be completed. So you can select any vehicle here. I'm just going to select this one, so the F7, the, let's see, draw distance, that's fine. All points must be completed in sequence is the default mode, which is good for the session. Now the location. This is where it will be displayed. Now this one I want to be displayed on the locomotive itself. You can select the icon set, which we've only got the base one here, a display text underneath, and this is wait for boarding. And then you can set an icon. Default is proceed forward. I want this to be passenger stop icon. And then the style automatic means it will trigger as soon as the locomotive touches the range of the trigger or a track mark or whatever. Manual means you have to complete it by a session rule. And required stop means if the train stops while on the trigger or track mark. For this one we need manual because I want this to be time-based. You can download more icon sets on the DLS. I have no idea. Hello, Mr. Snipes, welcome. Is this one of those half-baked conspiracy scenarios? Well, it's not finished yet, so yes. Okay, now, how long does it usually take for... Because you know it takes away the controls when you stop at a station. How long does that usually take? Let's time it. So, actually, did I just save? I thought I did. Yeah, okay. So let's quickly go in. It should now automatically pause the session because of the text message, and then we can time how long that takes. I think some stations allow that time to be set. Yes, some do. The ones I've used here, I don't think so. Like, you must leave the station and pick up a mysterious railcar from a guarded facility rumored to be holding a crashed UFO. That is a very interesting idea for a session, and I may very well do that. It might also involve the test cube with checks, who knows. Default is 10 seconds, I believe. Might vary by the asset though. Okay, that's useful to know, but I'll still test it. Love that. Oh! Put it on a bound layer or something to have it Oh! Yes. See, now you're thinking with sessions. Session rules. Yeah, player orders. This is still not completely full. Actually, yeah, I need to also put in wait for all assets to load in before continuing. Because if we... Actually, I need to... That wasn't a very good test. Hold on. I need to... 1 second. Yeah, that's something I forgot. I need to add that in the default session as well. Because sometimes it can take a while for assets to fully load in. And so, yeah, I need to quickly add that message. Is that huge SAP message pop-up really necessary? Would a regular one suffice? Not sure. Well, that's going to have all the intro text in it for the player, so I'm probably gonna leave that. But we'll see. So let's see, this needs to be a warning. Icon warning. This needs to pause, and then important. Wait for all assets to load in before important. There we go. It's just, sometimes my fingers don't move as quickly as I think, and then I miss putting in certain letters. But thank you. Wait for all assets to load in before closing this message and continuing. Okay. Good. Now, can I copy this out of here? I don't know. Let's see. I tell you, Joe, one of them... All right, before that. Sorry, I need to click load. You peek into the mysterious warehouse and it's just tins of beans stuck to the rafters. Oh, would the regular one suffice? Not sure. Important, yes. I tell you, Joe, one of them cans is home to UFO. They're disguising themselves by hiding in bean cans, see? No, blame the keyboard. I blame mine. Well, this keyboard really isn't to blame. It's just my fingers not reaching the keys fast enough. And then, when I'm thinking of what I'm typing, in my mind, I've already gone through all the letters, but if my finger hasn't really reached that letter yet, sometimes I then redirect my finger to the next letter, because in my mind I've already gone past it, and so I think I've already typed it, if I'm typing quickly. So, yeah. Right, now let's see if I can paste that text in or not. Message. Oops, that's not the right one. That's the close message pop-ups. Session rule. Message pop-up, edit, can I paste? No. Important. Wait for all the assets. Actually, no, wait for all assets to load in before closing this window. And actually, no, before closing, what did I type? Window or message? Message and continuing. And then this needs to be a warning thing. Did I take that pause? I'm not sure. Yes, good. Good. Right, now it's time to time. Now if I click drive, it should immediately pop up with that and immediately pause the session, which means no time will pass. And then I'll time how long it takes. So I'll press return as soon as the computer's clock, because there I can see the seconds, reaches a certain number. And then as soon as I get control, I am going to check that. Okay, so let's follow the instructions and wait for all the stuff to load in first. Sometimes it can help if you zoom out and zoom back in. Important advice. Hmm. Almost there. Okay, I think that's everything loaded in. So I'll press return as soon as the clock hits 42. And the next message doesn't have the thing. There we go. So now that the clock's resumed, and oh, it didn't take away control. Why did it not take away control? How very odd. Also, I noticed that the warning about maybe I need to stop first. The warning about the playing the session in one go didn't show up. Oh, now it's taking control. Oh, did they change that? If you start at a station, does it not take away control? Interesting. Yeah, I know you can't hear the game. You don't really need to at the moment because, well, we're not really testing the session yet. We still need to actually script it first. Probably inconsequential currently, yeah. Okay, so let's give it a moment first. Let's quickly hop into session rules. Oh, I guess you can't have them be separate like that. I guess it has to be indented. Okay, interesting. I thought it didn't have to be, but that's fine. Okay, but if you don't have to wait when you start at the station, then I don't think we need to have the first nav point be on the locomotive to wait. That just doesn't make sense. I just want to now quickly test and see that all the messages do appear, because I don't want to continue building the session before testing that. Also, you will notice every time I test the session, I go out into the menu and then enter driver mode from there. I don't use quick drive because quick drive doesn't always reset everything properly, and some things may be broken if you use quick drive, especially with more complicated session rules. So I always go out and back in. I think some signaling stuff might also not function completely properly with that, but who knows. Okay, so we've got the first one. Hold on. I know, dude, there's no need to tell me. Okay, so we've got the first message. Important. For all assets, wait for all assets to load in before closing this message and continuing. Then we've got our orders. And then we'll continue. And then, oh, important info. Do not pass signals at danger. Do not exceed the speed limit by more than 3 miles per hour. Always keep an eye on upcoming speed limit changes. Always stop on markers with the leading locomotive car. While shunting, you may need to throw switches manually. And then it is recommended to play this session in one go, as saving and loading may break the session. And then we can get started. Okay. Trainz in Classic skips a step when going straight from the editor. The slightly important step of informing signals about trains. Well, yeah. Okay, so now let's actually get to deciding where the nav markers should be, the nav points. So the first one, we don't need to be on the loco. Oh, you've returned? I didn't know you were gone. Also, we are probably going to use the time rules. Like the arrival and departure score thing. There are other ones in that. List of things, I think. I'd have to check a different route for that. Like they haven't got tramway, for example. But we do not need this nav marker yet. Okay, so now nav markers you can place on trackside objects. So like, for example, track markers, which is what I do. And usually I just put them on the session layer. You could make a new layer for them, but you don't really need to. Okay, assets still loading in. Now what I said was, yeah, I don't remember that working either, about having message pop-ups on the same level. For some reason messages weren't loading for me, neither the bots nor code marquees, and mine weren't showing up on stream. Ah, right. Yeah. There was something else that did work like that, though. Okay, so we're here. Now, where should the first nav marker be? It should be fairly close. So, how about right here on the crossing? That's a nice specific landmark to cross over as well. And it's close enough so that you know exactly where you're heading. So usually with track marks, with track markers for the navigation system, usually I just call them TM and then space, and then I just number them through. So TM1, and then I need to change the radius of this to 1 meter. And TM1 is on there. And then from here, where should the next one be? The next one should be a little, well, quite a bit further away. Perhaps on the other side of this hill. Although, how far is that? Actually, that's probably about a mile-ish. So let's actually put it on the crest of this hill. ish. Because then I want there to be enough space for the player to see, oh, I've got to stop down there by Clayton Heights. So if I put this too close down there, then you won't really see it, even though there is ghosting. Okay, so this is TM2. And when you place this, or when you click on it with the properties window, you can always check what layer it is on up here. Okay, that's TM2. And then the next one I would want to be at Clayton Heights station. And so I think the locomotive will need to stop right around. Well, ideally you'd want it to stop in front of the signal, so probably around there. So TM3. Oops. And then the next one to continue along. Let's see. Probably right after these junctions, so that it's clear which track you're going on. So this one should be TM4. And then the next one is a stop marker for Telehigh. Although those signals are really quite close. Okay, anyway, that's TM5. And then, let's see. So the next one, I think I want halfway between Telehigh and Museum Street, which should be around there. Actually, let's have it in this curve. That'll look nice. So TM6. And then the next one, I'll put in Museum Street for the stop. Should be around there. TM7. Then we've got two more. I think maybe one. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. We'll have one right there, and this one, TM8, I think we were at, and this one will have the arrow, the proceed arrow pointing left because we're diverging, and then one final one to stop to unload, but that can't be all the way at the end because we'll need a little bit of gap. So we've got two F units there. So it'll take about that much space. Actually, I can just very quickly place those. And our official F unit, actually let's place the freight variant, why not? So if those go that far here, we'll have one car gap, which means we'll need to have the marker be about there. So this one was TM9? Hold on, Command F. Then you can search for TM. Ooh, TM5 has 2 spaces, that's not ideal. But 9 is the correct number. Okay, so right, here we go. And then TM5. Click on that. Need to rename that so it doesn't have the 2 spaces. Okay, so now let's put in all of the markers. And these are fairly straightforward. So the first one is supposed to be at TM1, and this is just called proceed, the text underneath. Proceed forward is default. Automatic means you can just drive through it. Next one, TM2, and each time you click on it, it automatically goes to the location so you can see where it is. This one should also be proceed. Next one, TM3, this one should be the passenger load. So this one should be, what should the text be? Let's do load, load passengers. And then the icon needs to be the location passenger, or no, passenger stop should be the icon. Next one, TM4, this needs to be proceed. Also this one, the passenger one, that needs to be require stop, so that you can't just drive through it for it to acknowledge. TM5, that's another stop one, so load passengers, and then this one needs to be the passenger stop icon and a required stop. Then TM6, that needs to be proceed one. Seven, another stop. Let's see. Yeah, this one needs to be passenger stop, required stop. Number 8, TM8, proceed, but this one needs to have a left arrow, so proceed left, automatic, and then TM9, that needs to be unload passengers. And I'll make this be, I'll make this have the, let's try passenger stop icon. And that also needs a required stop. So let's click check mark again. And, well, let's just test that it works at least a little bit. We don't have to test the whole thing, but let's just test that it works a little bit. Because on the one hand, if you test lots, that means you find errors quickly and you don't build on errors, which is useful. But also testing takes a lot of time, both in terms of gameplay time and also in terms of loading times. I don't know how the volume will be. 50 minutes over? Oh, right. Okay, sure. I mean, I don't want to test the whole thing. I just want to test a little bit to make sure that it actually works. Okay, let's follow. I give myself very good advice, and in this case, I do actually follow it. Yeah, and then we will also get into AI trains and all that sort of stuff. Also, I do need to still decide on the new streaming schedule with the Trainz streams returning and exactly where they'll be slotted in. They won't necessarily be continuously on Saturdays. It's just this was the earliest streaming slot that I could have to have the first return of Trainz. And so I took it. Let's just wait for it to load in. And the Trainz tomorrow? Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. Choose. Yes, there we go. Okay, so tell me about the volume. Okay, so players' orders, that's fine. Info, that's all fine. Also, with this model, the Mars light also does work. You can turn it on. I would love it if I could actually upload these models, like these reskins of the F7. If only Train by One responded. Oh right, that's another thing. So the way that the speed limits work in Trainz is they only apply when a locomotive rolls over the trackside object, which means if this was like, I don't know, 80 miles per hour speed limit, then it would still set it to 40 if the locomotive spawned within, well, between those trackside objects. So that's the thing I need to do. Yeah, here's the post office. By the way, these repaints, my development of them was detailed over on Discord, and people's input was given and taken. Would it be good if you had the station start at 9:59 and have the text C depart at 10? Yeah, well, we'll get into that. Firstly, I don't know what time of day exactly I want for this session yet. And secondly, with the arrival departure rule, you can set stuff like that in, so yeah. Okay, so well, you saw that green navigation marker disappeared as we drove over it. That's the automatic marker doing its job. I'd suggested to move the previous waypoint to be a bit after the crossing so that the sound doesn't interfere with the horn sound. Oh, maybe. I don't know yet. Actually, let's test the speeding thing. It shouldn't be that hard to do, considering we're now going to go downhill. There we go, losing points due to speeding. Okay. Now, I don't have any points to begin with, because I didn't give myself those with the... I didn't give myself those with the variable set rule. But I would be losing them if I had also put that in, but I didn't put that in yet either, which is something I still need to do. Yeah, because I put the message in, but not the actual rule. Okay. So you can see there's now a different icon over there. That's the passenger stop icon. Okay. And at the bottom you can see Clayton Heights there, so you know how far away it is. What do you mean, look? Oh yeah, the cement plant. Now the cement plant... Oh, actually, hold on one second. The cement plant has a new little connection back here. So you can see there's another little line that's practically abandoned that goes back here and goes... It's very rickety and goes through overgrown fields and stuff. Goes past an old kind of industrial thing. And that eventually goes through some woods. And then goes to this little scrapyard over here to service that. And then it also connects back up to the main line over here to cut off that little corner. So, yeah. Sorry about the performance, it's just because I'm streaming. Okay, now there is a signal here, which is deviously being masked by the marker, slightly. I don't know how good the brakes are on this thing. Apparently not that good. Okay, yeah. I still need to get a feeling for this as well. But this should disappear when... There we go. See, it disappeared when the train actually stopped on it. And that's what I wanted to test. Railhands has to look away. Although, if you pop up chat, yeah. Very nice. Anyone that hits a home run in that ballpark is gonna hit a train. What do you mean? What do you mean hit a train? Look, we've got a fence there, and if the ball goes up over the fence, high enough, then it'll also cross over the tracks. Yeah, sure, okay. On a scale of oil patch to cheese, I rate this braking 8 yards too far out of 10. Yeah, I know. I wasn't really paying that much attention. Normally I would have, of course, approached it more cautiously, especially with the train that I'm not used to, but I just wanted to check the marker. Plus, I was going over speed anyway. I'm back, sorry. Missed the last 25 minutes or so. Basically, just making sure that the marker works. Okay, we don't really need to test the rest of them now. There wouldn't be any point in that. Right, I wanted to fix the one thing in the default session, which is the indentation of the message box. It's fine, he was deliberately speeding. Yeah, because that makes it all fine. If you weren't just accidentally speeding, if you were deliberately speeding, that makes it all better, doesn't it? Weren't there also baseball patches? Baseball patches. I know you said pitches. That had railroad lines crossing directly through them back in the day, I guess. There was one, I believe. I don't remember where. You don't understand, officer. I was speeding intentionally. Yeah. Okay, so... I don't really think we've got... Actually, hold on. I can show you all the assets that I've reskinned. Because we don't really have time to work much more on the session. But we've got like 4 minutes, and that should be plenty of time for me to show the assets. Which, if you're on the Discord server, you'll already have seen these. So... I've got, of course, the F7s, which I will hopefully be able to actually use these models, as I've said before. These beautiful models, so the A and B units. So that's the passenger livery. This is the freight livery, with weathering, of course. And then we've got the Ingalls shipbuilding in passenger livery. Which this is there was only ever one of these built as a prototype, and the class, well, it didn't take off, but in this fictional universe it did, and the MVR bought a whole bunch of them. And then we've got Fairbanks Morse, what's the specific, hold on, Fairbanks Morse H1244 in the freight livery, with lots of weathering as well, of course, and scratches. Then we've got an SW15, I believe. No, SW10, sorry. SW10, which also weathering with scratches and stuff. By the way, thanks to the community for giving feedback on this, like for example with the chevrons and all that sort of stuff. That is very much appreciated. And then we've got a Hudson. Now this is originally, of course, the New York Central Hudson model. I've obtained permission to reskin it, and so I've reskinned it in the passenger livery, which I think this turned out quite well. One bit of feedback was about this black line, to maybe raise that or have something change on the tender so that this kind of crosses over, but it wouldn't really look great. So I've got this. Then we've got a mountain type, which this is, I originally thought for maybe freight or local passenger stuff, but maybe for freight it's a little bit too shiny, although you can easily explain that away. Yeah, so originally this was Florida coast, or I don't remember. I do not remember, but it's a mountain type anyway. So yeah, I think that's quite nice. And then we've got a little 6-couple switcher, which I'm really happy with this one and how this one turned out. Especially the wood paneling looks as good as I can make it look, because over here the width of the boards is that wide, and over here it's really very wide, and so can't really make the boards themselves more pronounced, unfortunately, but yeah, there we go. So those are the steamers and the diesels that I've got, except for here, these are the ones Kanga repainted as well. So speeders with lovely wood paneled interior as well. So those are lovely. And then let's go with passenger coaches first. So we've got the 48-seater MVR coach with the typical green tinted windows. Then we've got the extended dome car. Then the regular dome car, which can go also basically copied the repaint from this one over onto this one. Then we've got the RPO, the Railway Post Office, and baggage car. And then we've got a dome car for the end of certain more scenic trains. Show the interior of the small dome one. Oh yeah, yes. Can go also on this one. Change the texture of the seats somewhat down over here. Also down, hold on 1 second. Also down in the lower floor, put on the MVR text. And also made this interesting MVR Vistadome logo and put that on there. Okay, so that's the passenger stuff. Now for freight, we've got a standard 40-foot boxcar, which, yeah, it's pretty standard. Then we've got this, I think, 55-ton coal hopper. And then we have this gondola, which is... I might still need to have a look at this. It's supposed to have numbers on there, I think, but I still need to have a look at that. This is for sugarcane bulk load and for wood chips bulk load. Then we've got a covered hopper for grain and for flour and for sugar as well. By the way, the boxcar is also for sugar in sacks or bags. Then we've got the caboose, which Kango has very lovingly modified the interior of, but that's not entirely finished currently, I believe. Right, so yeah, that's the rolling stock. Now, I do still have a fairly extensive list of assets that I do actually have permission to reskin, but that I've not done simply because of time. Plus, every loco that I reskin means that that'll take away a session from another loco, or it'll just add more development time. But like for example, oops, that's wrong there. Yeah, like for example, this one, the RS3, or here, or a few of these. These ones I have done. There we go. These ones I could. Oh, these ones. Like this one, I might end up reskinning this one as well, because this, I just love the way this looks. This shark nose design with A and B units. I mean, that would look great, but it might take away sessions for the F7, for example. Cotton belt P1, again, that could be really nice. That's the B unit. VO1000. Ah, yes. That one. And then there were some really, really old ones, which might be fun to put around somewhere. Like this one, for example. Like some really, really old diesels. And then we've got the Union Pacific M10,000 cars, which, well, you can see this could also be a lot of fun, but again would take away sessions from other stuff. And then the Cosmafy, which I know Eagle really likes this one, and so it would be great if I could repaint that one. But again, that would then take away sessions from the F7s, for example, because there's only so much trackage on the route, and then it would likely just either be repetition or you'd only have 1 or 2 sessions per thing with all of them. But I do have permission for that, and also this one, which this actually does reflect. It's just because I've got shaders turned down that it doesn't really reflect here, but the Zephyr I can also reskin, and others maybe as well, but that's the list I've got compiled there. So yeah, there we go. That's the first session making live stream, and we'll have another one soon. I don't exactly know when, but we'll have another one soon. And then once we've... Actually, thinking about it, I was about to say once we've finished the first session, I'll make the other ones off stream, but actually, I don't really need to. I can just make the rest, start making the rest of the sessions in between, and just not work on this particular session off stream. That's probably a better idea. But yeah, we'll have another session making live stream soon. And then once I've made like the passenger, then a freight, and maybe also a switching session on stream, then we might get into some of the planning aspects for the third rail network route, while I'm still finishing the rest of the sessions off stream. Maybe. Because it's just, with the session making, it's just, from a session making point of view, it's usually just a lot of repetition. Although I might sprinkle in some session making live streams here and there if there are some really interesting things, like for example layer work or things like that. We'll see. Time to rechat, and then I'll end the stream. Right. Where was I? Show the caboose interior. Could show the horns too in that. Maybe continuing until 30 past. Nah, I'll do that next time. Yeah, you did suggest that one. What an odd thing. Yeah. Number badge on the front of the mountain. The lining, is that red? Yeah, it's red. It's the same red as in the original model. Took the wood paneling, yes. The extended dome also had space for a logo like that on texture, where I've put Star Superdome on there, but apparently no part of the model used it, so oh well. Currently working on the third poster. Ooh. I was just before the stream. For Channel? I don't. Well, see, I want you to really feel like you can get used to these engines and you can get familiar with them. And I've already got 3 switchers. I've got the SW10 and the Fairbanks Moors and the Steam one. And then if we've got a 4th one, then that's just going to take away from that familiarity with the other ones, or it'll just end up being repetition of sessions. Because, yeah, I can have as many sessions as I want working in the yard, where trains come in and you've got to split them this way or split them that way, and then couple it back together this other way. And with how many industries we've got there, that could all still have variation in it, but I don't know that it would be that interesting for the player. But we'll see. We'll see. Box cabs, submarine, gas turbine, the Super, aka Zephyr. Actually, before that, but with a Erie A, how would the yellow-brown the front end up? What? How would the yellow down the front end up? I don't know. The rear of that one cat train in My and the Kitten Bus really reminds me of the rear of the UP 10,000. True. Practically identical. I'd love to see the ML4000, that's the Cosmify, and the Erie on the MVR. Yeah. I mean, those are the two that I'm the likeliest to reskin still. But I do want to actually get started with making sessions now and making sure that all the locomotives that I've currently got, which are the most important ones for me, have plenty of stuff to do, like session-wise, gameplay-wise, and then I'll look into reskinning some more things. Great idea. Also, I did swap the horns of the MVR Freight F7s and the Ingalls for us. Okay. I think it's better to have a different one for the passenger F7. Why? It's up to you in the end. Okay, I'll listen to it. You'll continue past 30 next time? I don't know. Does the Firebranks most really count as a switcher? I think so, yeah. Because you've got that good visibility out the back as well. That's certain. Plus it's got the chevrons. Anyway. Thank you all very much for watching. It's good to be back in Trainz. And good night, everybody. This will, of course, be archived on YouTube as well. Bye-bye.